She teased the human warrior until her mother said he's your father. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved through the plazas, their voices mixing in a melody of strange sounds. Today was the Festival of Stars, a celebration of peace, culture, and the bonds between planets. Everyone was excited. Even the sky seemed to sparkle with joy. Among the crowd, Captain Elias Vance walked cautiously. His uniform was clean, but he felt awkward. Humans were rare on Zithra Prime, and he noticed the curious eyes following him. He had been sent as a human emissary, a warrior known for his skill in combat and his calm mind under pressure. Yet here, surrounded by aliens who moved with grace he could not match, Elias felt clumsy. Then she appeared. Lyra, a young Zithran girl with silver hair that shimmered like starlight and bright green eyes, spotted him immediately. She had a mischievous smile and a sparkle in her eyes that made her look like she knew every secret in the galaxy. Elias had just tried to bow politely to a group of Zitharans when Lyra stepped in front of him, blocking his path. "You walk funny," she said, tilting her head. "And why do humans wear such stiff clothes? Are you afraid your armor will wrinkle?" Elias blinked. He was not used to anyone speaking to him so boldly, especially a child. He opened his mouth to reply, but Lyra had already turned and darted ahead, giggling. "You can't catch me," she called over her shoulder, her voice light and teasing. Elias sighed, then smiled faintly. He had faced alien warships, dangerous creatures, and deadly landscapes, but a single Zitharan child was proving far trickier than any battlefield. He started to chase her through the crowded streets. Lyra led him to the floating gardens, a massive area suspended above the city by unknown energy fields. Flowers of every color and shape swayed gently in the artificial wind, and glowing insects floated lazily among the petals. Lyra leapt from one floating platform to another, her movements quick and precise. Elias followed, though his heavy boots made loud thuds on the platforms. "You'll never catch me," Lyra shouted, laughing. Elias focused. He could not let her think a human was weak. Using a careful jump, he landed on the next platform. She gasped in surprise. You're faster than I thought," she said, her eyes wide. Elias grinned. "I may be clumsy on the ground, but I can manage a little gravity trickery." Lyra's laughter rang out again, pure and clear. Even though he had only just met her, something about her energy made Elias feel alive. He had spent so many years fighting, so many nights alone in the cold silence of space. But here, with Lyra teasing him and the moons shining overhead, he felt human in a way he had almost forgotten. As they moved through the gardens, Lyra stopped suddenly. She pointed to a strange, floating creature hovering near the flower beds. It had long, translucent wings and a body that glowed softly. "Catch it if you can," she challenged. Elias raised an eyebrow. Humans were not usually hunters of small creatures, but he could see the fun in it. He crouched, focused, and in a careful move managed to gently scoop the creature into his hands without hurting it. Lyra's jaw dropped. "How did you do that?" she whispered, impressed. Elias held up the creature, letting its wings flutter free. "Patience, observation, and a bit of luck," he said with a small smile. Lyra's eyes shone. "Not bad for a human warrior." She seemed to consider him in a new light. For a moment, she studied his face, as if trying to figure out who he really was. Elias noticed the curiosity, and it made him wonder what she was thinking. Just then, a soft voice interrupted them. "Lyra, don't bother the guest too much." It was High Envoy Serena, Lyra's mother. She was tall, regal, and calm. Her eyes glowed faintly like the energy of the twin moons, and her voice carried authority without anger. Elias turned to Bo, but Lyra waved him off. "He's just a human, Mother, but he's kind of fun to chase," Lyra said, laughing. Serena raised an eyebrow. "Fun is one thing. Respect is another. Remember, he carries responsibilities beyond this festival." Lyra pouted playfully. I know, but he can take it. He's strong, see?" She glanced at Elias with a teasing grin. Elias felt a warmth in his chest. It was strange. He was being teased like a child, yet he was not offended. Instead, he felt included. Somehow, her laughter and curiosity made him feel part of something bigger than the galaxy's endless conflicts. The festival continued around them. Stalls offered foods that glowed softly in the dark, performers spun through the air on ribbons of light, and children of all species laughed and played together. The humans and Zitharans mingled, sharing stories of planets, stars, and strange adventures. Elias noticed that even though the Zitharans were physically graceful, humans had something different: stubbornness, courage, and a spark of ingenuity that others admired. Lyra tugged at his arm. Come on, one more challenge before the day ends. Bet you can't jump across those platforms over there? She pointed to a series of floating rocks that moved in a slow, circular pattern. Elias studied them. It would be difficult but not impossible. He took a deep breath and ran. His body adjusted to the rhythm of the floating rocks, and with careful timing he jumped across, landing safely on the final platform. Lyra clapped her hands. You did it! I didn't think you could! Elias smiled, catching his breath. Never underestimate a human warrior. Lyra giggled, bouncing in excitement. Maybe humans aren't so bad after all. Serena watched from a distance, her face calm but thoughtful. She had seen Elias in action before, many years ago, though neither he nor Lyra knew it. There was a memory in her mind, buried deep, of a promise and a choice that had shaped everything. But for now, she let the moment be, letting her daughter laugh and Elias enjoy the rare joy of simple fun. As the twin moons rose higher in the sky, Elias and Lyra continued their playful chase, unaware that their meeting was not just chance. Fate had brought them together, weaving a story of family, courage, and discovery that would soon change the course of both their lives. The Festival of Stars shone brightly around them, reflecting not just the lights of Zithara Prime, but the first sparks of a bond that neither human nor Zitharan could yet understand. The sun of Zithara Prime had begun to set, casting golden light over the crystalline towers of the city. The twin moons glimmered faintly, preparing to take their turn in the night sky. The Festival of Stars was still alive with laughter, music, and lights that danced over the streets. Elias and Lyra walked side by side through the festival, their earlier chase leaving both of them slightly out of breath. Lyra's laughter had softened into an easy smile, one that made her eyes sparkle in the fading sunlight. She carried the floating creature Elias had rescued earlier, letting it hover near her shoulder. You're not as bad as I thought, Lyra said teasingly. For a human, you're kind of fun. Elias chuckled, shaking his head. I'll take that as a compliment. Lyra stopped suddenly and looked around. Wait here. She darted ahead, her silver hair catching the last rays of sunlight. Elias watched her go, amused and curious. Even though she was just a child by human standards, there was something clever and bold in her movements. Lyra led him through a quieter part of the city, away from the bustling crowds. They entered a small courtyard surrounded by glowing gardens. The flowers here were brighter than any Elias had seen before, pulsing gently as if they had their own heartbeat. Lyra turned to him, her expression changing from playful to serious. I have to ask you something, she said, her green eyes searching his face. Elias raised an eyebrow. Go ahead. Lyra hesitated, then laughed nervously. Why do humans always look like you're ready for a fight, even when you're just walking? Elias smiled softly. We prepare for anything, even when nothing is coming. It helps us survive. Lyra considered that, then shook her head. I think it just makes you look serious all the time, but when you laughed earlier it felt different, like you were really happy. I've never seen anyone like that before. Elias looked at her for a long moment. Her words were simple, but they carried weight. No one had ever noticed the small changes in him, the quiet moments of happiness he rarely allowed himself. He realized that Lyra, despite her teasing, had a sharp mind and a careful eye. Before he could respond, a soft, commanding voice interrupted them. Lyra, what are you doing here? It was High Envoy Serena, stepping through the glowing garden, her presence calm but firm. Elias straightened, bowing slightly out of respect. Lyra rolled her eyes and gestured toward him. I'm showing him around, Mother. He's human and he can keep up better than I thought. Serena's eyes flicked to Elias, studying him silently. There was something familiar in his stance, the way he carried himself, and in the careful, deliberate way he observed everything around him. A memory stirred in her mind, one she had long kept hidden. Elias, she said finally, her voice low, come with me. Elias blinked, surprised. Lyra looked at him, puzzled. Mother, what is it? She asked. Serena gestured for Elias to follow her into a private chamber within the nearby tower. Lyra frowned but stayed outside, her curiosity piqued. Elias followed Serena silently, noticing the way her steps were light but purposeful. The room they entered was simple, with smooth walls and soft light, but it had an air of history. Serena turned to him, her expression serious. Elias, many years ago you were here on Zithara Prime as a young warrior. You worked with me during the peace negotiations, long before you became the captain you are today. Elias froze. I don't remember much, he said cautiously. Those were long years ago and the details are hazy, Serena nodded. I know, but I also know something you may not. Something about your connection here, about your bond with my family. She paused, studying him. You left this planet suddenly for reasons you believed were necessary, but there is a truth you have never faced. Elias' heart began to beat faster. He had always wondered if his life on distant planets and in endless battles had left unfinished stories behind. What truth? He asked carefully. Serena's voice softened, almost like a whisper. Lyra is your daughter. Elias blinked, stunned. The world seemed to tilt slightly. My daughter, he repeated, his mind racing. Years of absence, battles fought, decisions made, all of it collided with this one moment. Yes, Serena said. You had no idea and I did not tell you before, but it is the truth. Lyra carries your blood, your spirit, and your courage. She is strong because of you. Elias sank into a chair, overwhelmed. A daughter, this playful, mischievous, clever girl he had just met as she was his child. He tried to process it, thinking of all the moments he had missed, the years lost, the life he had not known. Serena continued, her voice gentle but firm. You must understand, Elias, this is not about blame or regret. It is about connection, about responsibility, and about what comes next. She is growing into a remarkable person, and she deserves to know the truth. You deserve to know her. Elias' hands clenched slightly. He had spent years training to protect others, to fight for peace, yet nothing had prepared him for this revelation. The human mind could strategize against enemies, but it could not plan for surprises of the heart. Outside the door, Lyra watched quietly. She had heard part of the conversation, her heart beating fast. Her teasing, her laughter had not prepared her for this. The playful human warrior who had made her laugh and run through the gardens, he was her father. For a long moment, no one spoke. Inside, Elias tried to gather his thoughts, the weight of the revelation pressing down on him. Outside, Lyra pressed her hand against the door, unsure whether to rush in or wait. Finally, Elias rose slowly, his mind clearing. I need to see her, he said quietly. I need to meet her properly, not as a warrior or an emissary, but as her father. Serena nodded. That is why I told you now. You have time, Elias, but the galaxy waits for no one. Soon you will need to act together, and the bond you build here will matter more than you can imagine. Elias stepped toward the door, taking a deep breath. The festival of stars continued around them, unaware of the quiet, profound change happening within the tower. Outside, Lyra's eyes filled with both surprise and hope. She had spent the day teasing, laughing, and challenging a human warrior. Now she understood that the man she had chased and admired was her father. For the first time, Elias felt a different kind of mission, not one of diplomacy or battle, but of understanding, connecting, and discovering the family he never knew he had. As he opened the door and looked at Lyra, he saw her green eyes shining with curiosity and courage. And in that moment, the playful teasing, the laughter, and the adventures of the day took on a new meaning. They were no longer just strangers enjoying a festival. They were family. The twin moons rose higher, casting soft light over the gardens. And under their glow, a human warrior and his daughter took the first steps toward understanding each other, unaware of the challenges the galaxy would soon place before them. Lyra stood frozen just outside the tower door, her hand still resting on the glowing crystal handle. Her mind raced faster than the floating gardens above the city. He's my father. The words repeated in her head like a drumbeat, making her heart pound with a mix of confusion, disbelief, and something she had never felt before, hope. Inside the room, Elias Vance walked slowly toward her, his face calm but filled with emotions he struggled to contain. He had faced countless battles, stared down starships, and survived alien worlds, yet nothing had prepared him for this. To see this child, so lively and clever, and know that she was his daughter, it was overwhelming. Lyra, he said softly, not wanting to frighten her, may I come in? Lyra hesitated, then nodded. The tiny sound of agreement felt monumental. Elias stepped inside, and for a moment neither spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of the energy that powered the crystal walls. Finally, Lyra broke the silence. All this time you were here, her voice shook slightly. And no one told me. Elias knelt slightly to be closer to her height. I didn't know you existed, he said honestly. I left Zithra years ago before I could understand the choices I had made. I never knew I had a daughter. Lyra's eyes widened. You really didn't know. I swear, Elias replied, not until today. Lyra's lips pressed together as she tried to hold back a flood of emotions. Anger, curiosity, excitement, and confusion all battled within her. She had spent her entire life teasing him, challenging him, wondering who he was, and now she knew that the human warrior she had laughed at all day was her father. Then, why now? She asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Why tell me now? Elias looked toward the twin moons, their pale light spilling into the room. Because, he said slowly, now you need to know. Because soon the galaxy will face dangers that no one can face alone, and you deserve to have me at your side, not as a stranger, but as your father. Lyra's mind wandered to the festival, the floating gardens, the laughter, and the playful challenges she had set for him. Everything felt different now. The teasing that had been fun suddenly carried a new weight. She realized that her curiosity about him, her fascination with his strength, had been something more than amusement. It had been a connection she hadn't understood until now. Her green eyes softened. So, all that teasing, it wasn't just fun for me? Elias smiled faintly. It was fun for me too, he admitted. You have a sharp mind, quick reflexes, and a courage I admire, and I think we could learn from each other. Lyra tilted her head, studying him. Learn from each other? She repeated. Yes, Elias said. I can teach you what I know about the galaxy, about survival strategy, and you can teach me about this world, about Zithra, and about what it means to live here. Together, we can face anything. Lyra's lips curled into a small smile, though her mind was still full of questions. I don't know if I'm ready to call you my father, she said honestly. It feels strange, but I think I want to try. Elias' chest tightened with relief. That's all I could ask for, he said softly. For a few moments, they simply looked at each other, two souls separated by years and distance, now standing together under the light of the twin moons. Outside, the festival continued, but inside, a quiet bond began to form, a bond of family, trust, and newfound understanding. But peace rarely lasted for long on Zithra Prime. Suddenly, a faint alarm echoed through the city. The soft glow of the crystal walls flickered, and the hum of energy shifted. Serena entered the room, her face calm but serious. Elias, Lyra, we have little time. Rogue factions in the outer sectors are moving closer to the city. They seek to disrupt the Festival of Stars and challenge the peace we have fought for generations to maintain. Elias nodded immediately. I understand, he said, his warrior instincts kicking in. Tell me what we need to do. Serena's eyes softened as she looked at Lyra. You will need to stay close to your father. He will guide you, but you must also trust your instincts. You are clever, Lyra, and the galaxy will soon see how strong you can be. Lyra's heart pounded. She had just learned that the man she had teased all day was her father, and now he was asking her to face danger alongside him. Part of her wanted to laugh, part of her wanted to run, but a stronger part of her felt ready. She had always admired his strength from afar, and now she could stand beside him. Elias extended his hand. Shall we begin? Lyra hesitated for a moment, then took it. The touch was simple, but it carried promise, connection, and courage. Together, they stepped toward the balcony overlooking the city. From their vantage point, the twin moons reflected across the crystal towers, illuminating the floating gardens and the bustling festival below. And beyond the city, distant ships moved in silence, shadows against the horizon. These were no ordinary ships. They belonged to the rogue factions, drawn by the festival and the promise of chaos. Elias looked at Lyra. Stay close to me, he said gently. The galaxy is not always safe, but together we can face it. Lyra nodded, determination replacing her earlier confusion. I will, she said firmly. I want to help, I want to be ready. Elias smiled faintly. Good, you are braver than most, Lyra. That courage will serve you well. They spent the next few hours training quietly in the gardens, practicing agility, reflexes, and teamwork. Lyra's Zithran skills blended with Elias' human strategy, creating a partnership neither had expected. She learned quickly, her laughter and energy tempered by focus and determination. Elias admired her resilience and clever thinking, realizing that she inherited more than just his blood, she had his spirit. As the twin moons rose high, casting silver light over the city, the first wave of rogue ships appeared on the horizon. They were small, fast, and dangerous, but Elias and Lyra were ready. Lyra looked at her father, her heart steady. We can do this, she said. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. Together, we will. For the first time in years, Elias felt a sense of purpose beyond duty and war. He had found his daughter, his family, and together they would face the challenges the galaxy would throw at them. The bond formed under the twin moons would guide them through the darkness and into the light. The Festival of Stars continued below, unaware of the coming trials, but inside the tower, a human warrior and his Zitharan daughter prepared to face the unknown. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and unpredictable, but together they were unstoppable. And so, under the twin moons of Zithara Prime, a father and daughter took their first steps into a shared destiny, one filled with courage, challenges, and the unbreakable bond of family. The twin moons of Zithara Prime hung high in the sky, casting their pale silver light across. The city. The Festival of Stars continued in the distance, the laughter of children and the soft music of Zitharan instruments mixing with the cool night air. But Elias and Lyra had no time for celebration. The rogue factions were moving closer, and the father-daughter pair had to prepare. Inside the floating gardens, Elias surveyed the area. The platforms above the city were perfect for training. Some hovered steadily, while others swayed gently in the artificial wind. For decades, these gardens had been a place of beauty and leisure, but tonight they would become a place of preparation. "Lyra," Elias said, his voice steady, "before we face them, we need to learn to move together. You have skills I can't teach, and I have experience you don't yet understand, but we can combine them. That is how we survive." Lyra nodded, determination flashing in her green eyes. "I'm ready, father. Teach me everything." Elias smiled faintly. The word father still felt strange on his tongue, but it carried a warmth he hadn't felt in years. "First lesson," he said, "trust. You must trust me to guide you, and I must trust you to act on your instincts." Lyra grinned. "I can do that." He led her through the floating gardens, beginning with basic maneuvers. They jumped from platform to platform, carefully timing their movements so neither lost balance. Elias noticed how Lyra's Zitharan agility gave her an advantage, but her human curiosity sometimes made her reckless. "Patience," Elias instructed. "Speed without control will get you hurt. Watch your footing, feel the energy around you, and think one step ahead." Lyra landed carefully on a moving platform, then looked back at him with pride. "Like this," Elias nodded. "Exactly, good. Now let's combine movement with strategy. You distract, I attack, then we switch. Communication is key." They practiced for hours, each jump, each move, each leap of faith building trust between them. Lyra began to see her father not just as a warrior, but as someone who cared deeply for her safety. And Elias began to understand that Lyra's energy and cleverness were invaluable. By the time the moons reached their highest point, the city below had fallen into a quiet anticipation. The rogue ships had drawn closer, appearing as dark silhouettes against the night sky. Elias stopped and pointed. "Look there," he said. "They are fast and unpredictable. They will not come alone, and they will try to divide us. But we have an advantage. We know each other, and we know this terrain. Use it." Lyra's heart pounded. She had never faced real danger before, but she felt ready. "I won't let you down," she said firmly. "I know," Elias replied, "and I won't let you down either." The first rogue ship approached, moving silently across the horizon. Its sensors scanned the city, searching for weaknesses. Elias gestured to Lyra. "Ready?" Lyra nodded. "Ready." They moved together across the platforms, coordinating their movements with precision. Lyra used her agility to dart between enemies, drawing their attention, while Elias used his human strategy to predict their attacks and counter them. They communicated silently with gestures, their bond growing stronger with every passing second. A second ship arrived, faster than the first. It fired beams that scorched the platforms nearby. Lyra dodged, jumping to safety, while Elias countered with precise strikes that disabled the ship's engines. The rogue factions were skilled, but they underestimated the combination of human experience and Zitharan skill. After several tense minutes, the first wave of attacks had been repelled. Lyra landed on a stable platform, panting but exhilarated. "That was amazing," she exclaimed. "I've never done anything like that before." Elias smiled faintly, catching his breath. "You were brilliant. Your instincts saved us more than once." Lyra's eyes shone. "I feel different, stronger, like I can really do something." "That's the point," Elias said. "Courage is not just about strength. It's about learning to trust yourself and the people beside you. Tonight, we have to trust each other more than ever." Serena appeared at the edge of the gardens, watching them with quiet pride. "You are doing well," she said, But remember, the danger is far from over. The rogue factions will not give up easily. They will test you in ways you cannot predict. Elias turned to her. We are ready, Lyra is ready, and together we will face whatever comes. Lyra looked at her father, feeling a surge of confidence. I'm not scared, she said, not with you. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. That's the spirit. Remember, bravery without control can be dangerous. Focus your energy, use your skills wisely, and think ahead. As the night deepened, more rogue ships appeared on the horizon. They were larger now, and their formation suggested a coordinated attack. Elias and Lyra took their positions, moving across the platforms like dancers in perfect harmony. Every step, every leap, every maneuver strengthened their bond. Lyra noticed how naturally they worked together. When Elias ducked, she jumped. When she dodged, he struck. Each instinct complemented the other. It was as if the hours of teasing and playful challenges from earlier in the day had been preparing them for this moment. Suddenly, a ship fired directly at them, aiming for the floating gardens. Lyra's reflexes saved her, but the platform beneath her shook violently. Elias reached out, grabbing her hand and pulling her to safety. Are you okay? He asked, concern flashing in his eyes. Lyra nodded, her heart racing. Yes, that was intense. Elias smiled faintly. Good, keep that energy, but stay aware, they will keep testing us. The rogue ships circled the city, probing for weaknesses, but Elias and Lyra anticipated their moves. They had learned to trust each other, to predict the patterns of attack, and to act as a single unit. The father-daughter team that had begun the day as strangers was now becoming a force to be reckoned with. Hours passed, and the attacks gradually slowed. The rogue ships, frustrated by the human-Zitharan duo, retreated toward the horizon. Elias and Lyra stood together on the highest platform, breathing heavily, watching the last of the enemy ships disappear into the distance. Lyra turned to her father, a mixture of excitement and awe in her eyes. We did it, we really did it. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder, smiling. Yes, and this is only the beginning. The galaxy is full of challenges, Lyra. But tonight we learned that together we can face anything. Lyra grinned, feeling a deep sense of pride. I'm glad you're my father, she said quietly. Elias' chest tightened. I'm glad too, Lyra. I promise I will never leave you again. The twin moons shone down on Zithara Prime, their light reflecting on the crystal towers and the floating gardens. The festival below continued, unaware of the trials that had taken place above. But for Elias and Lyra, the night had marked a turning point. They had discovered trust, courage, and the power of family. And as they stood together, father and daughter, a bond stronger than any danger in the galaxy had begun to form. A bond that would guide them through every trial to come. The city of Zithara Prime glowed under the twin moons, its towers shimmering like silver and blue fire. The festival of stars continued below, but in the skies above, a shadow loomed. The rogue factions had returned, larger and stronger than before. Their ships moved with precision, cutting across the night like streaks of darkness, their weapons ready to strike. Elias and Lyra stood at the highest platform of the floating gardens, overlooking the city. The lessons of the previous night had prepared them, but now they would be tested fully. Every step, every decision mattered. Lyra tightened her grip on her twin energy blades, the weapons shimmering in her hands. Father, there are more ships than before. Are we really ready? Elias placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We are, but remember, this isn't just about strength. It's about strategy, observation, and trust. We face them together. Lyra nodded, determination flashing in her green eyes. She had trained with her father for hours, learning human strategy, refining her Zitharan agility, and understanding the power of teamwork. She felt ready, stronger than she ever had. The rogue ships moved closer. Their engines hummed like predators circling their prey. Elias pointed to the energy conduits that powered the floating gardens. We can use the platforms to our advantage, force them into narrow paths. Their speed will work against them here. Lyra's eyes lit up. Like a trap. Exactly, Elias said. Human strategy, Zitharan skill. Watch and follow my lead. As the first enemy ship fired a beam at the gardens, Lyra leapt into action. Her blades glowed as she deflected the attack, flipping gracefully to the next platform. Elias moved alongside her, his human instincts predicting the next move of their attackers. Together, they were a single unit, one mind, two bodies. The rogue ships tried to divide them, sending one wave to the north and another to the south. Elias quickly calculated their movements. We'll split temporarily. You handle the northern group, I'll take the south. Meet back at the central tower. Lyra hesitated. I can do it. You can, Elias replied firmly. Trust yourself. Trust what you've learned. With a nod, Lyra darted toward the northern platforms, using her agility to dodge beams and leap from moving surfaces. Her movements were faster than human eyes could follow, her energy blades cutting through the smaller enemy drones with precision. She remembered everything her father had taught her: focus, timing, patience. Meanwhile, Elias took the southern side, using careful strategy to disable the larger ships. He anticipated their attacks, manipulating the environment and the energy fields of the platforms to create obstacles for the enemy. Each move was calculated, precise, and effective. As the battle raged, the rogue faction's leadership appeared, a massive vessel bristling with weapons. Its engines roared, shaking the platforms beneath them. Elias looked at Lyra, communicating without words. She understood immediately. Together, she said, determination in her voice. They met in the center, combining their skills. Lyra's agility allowed her to climb onto the leader ship's outer hull while Elias coordinated from below, guiding her attacks. She struck weak points, using speed and precision, while Elias disabled the ship's shields and diverted energy to critical areas. The rogue ship shuddered and sparks flew, but it was far from defeated. It fired a massive energy beam at the gardens. Lyra reacted instantly, deflecting it with her blades just enough to protect the city, while Elias rerouted energy to reinforce the platforms. Their teamwork was seamless, each anticipating the other's moves. Serena watched from below, her pride shining in her eyes. She had trained Lyra well, but the bond between father and daughter was something beyond teaching. It was instinct, trust, and understanding born of shared effort and courage. The battle intensified. Smaller ships swarmed, trying to overwhelm them, but Elias and Lyra used their environment creatively. Floating platforms shifted, glowing barriers were activated, and carefully timed attacks sent the rogue drones tumbling into the sky. Their enemies had underestimated them. Humans and Zitherans working together were unpredictable, fast, and clever. Finally, the leader ship made one last desperate move, aiming directly at the city's central tower. Lyra glanced at Elias. We have to stop it. Elias nodded. We will, together. They coordinated perfectly. Lyra ran across the platforms, using her agility to reach a vulnerable engine core while Elias provided cover, striking enemy drones and redirecting energy flows. With a final leap, Lyra planted a destabilizing charge on the core. The leader ship shook violently, its systems failing. Elias gave her a nod. Now run! Lyra leapt away as the ship exploded in a brilliant cascade of sparks and energy. The rogue fleet, seeing their leader destroyed, retreated quickly into the dark horizon. The city below was safe. Lyra landed on a platform beside Elias, breathless but exhilarated. We did it! We actually did it! Elias placed a hand on her shoulder, smiling. Yes, and this is just the beginning. You were amazing, Lyra. You've got courage, skill, and the heart of a warrior. Lyra's chest swelled with pride. I learned from the best, she said with a grin. Elias laughed softly, the sound full of relief and joy. And I learned from you too. Your instincts saved us more than once tonight. They looked down at the city, safe and peaceful once more. The festival continued below, lights twinkling, music drifting through the air, unaware of the danger that had just passed. For Elias and Lyra, however, the night marked something far greater than victory. It marked the beginning of a bond that would never break. Serena approached them, her eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. You have done well, both of you. Tonight you proved that courage, trust, and unity can overcome even the greatest threats, and perhaps more importantly, you discovered the power of family. Lyra looked at her father. I'm glad you're my father, she said quietly. Elias' chest tightened and he smiled. I'm glad too, Lyra. I promise I will always protect you, guide you, and stand by your side. The twin moons shone down, bathing them in silver light. The floating gardens reflected the glow, creating a scene of beauty and triumph. Father and daughter stood together, victorious, connected, and ready to face whatever challenges the galaxy might bring. For the first time in years, Elias felt at home, not because of any city or ship or planet, but because of the family he had found. Lyra had not only learned from him, but he had learned from her courage, her ingenuity, and her heart. Together, they had faced the impossible and prevailed. The galaxy was vast and full of unknown dangers. But under the light of the twin moons, a human warrior and his Zitharan daughter knew they could face anything. Humanity's ingenuity, combined with Zitharan's skill and heart, had saved a planet and created a bond that would last forever. And as the night settled over Zithara Prime, father and daughter looked at the stars, knowing that together there was no challenge too great, no enemy too powerful, and no journey they could not face.